Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita sekalian. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Nama Budaya. Ladies and gentlemen, the organizers of the Indonesia Economic Forum, first of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation to speak at this distinguished conference. Thank you. Pak Ilham is here, Pak Gita Wirawan, Pak Jim Castle, distinguished guests. I am very honored by this invitation. I rarely get an invitation from an elite gathering. So, of course, when I'm invited, I took this opportunity. In fact, with invitations like this, all my advisors are very worried. So last night, the big discussion was, what costume should I use? One of my more Western-educated advisors, he said, "Sir, you must wear blue suit with red tie, light blue shirt." Why? You must be like your audience. And I told him, I'm not like the audience. I'm an Indonesian political leader. And then I said, you know, I always admired countries like India, Pakistan, Thailand, Myanmar, Sri Lanka. All the leaders always use their national dress. So I started a few months ago, when I have invitations, I try to use my national dress. And I want to be giving an example that we should be proud of our heritage. But also there's certain risk, and funny things happened to me. A few weeks ago, I went to a diplomatic reception. I wore my national dress. After that, I was a bit hungry, so I went to a restaurant, Kunskring. And I was there, and I realized most of the waiters were dressed like me. And this is a true story, by the way. So there was a group of foreigners, I think they were Westerners, you know, at least they were 5 or 6 Westerners, there were 2 or 3 Indonesians. One big European guy, very tall, came to me and complimented me. He said, "You have a very good restaurant. Your team, very excellent service. I must commend you for that." I think he thought I was the maître d'. And then his Indonesian partner whispered, "This is the presidential candidate running for president." And he said, "Oh." So, you know, there are certain risks. But, well, here I am. Thank you very much for inviting me. You, of course, would like to know my thoughts about the situation in Indonesia. And I will give you my thinking. Maybe many people would not like to hear what I'm going to say, but I have heard and I've read that to talk about the country, especially its economy, we can use the analogy of a human body. It is said by many experts that the economy of a country is like a human body. It's a system with many subsystems. Each subsystem vital to the health of the body. And if we take care of the body, we maintain the body, we manage the body, we have a good lifestyle, we do not practice unhealthy action actions. For instance, we refrain from putting chemicals to our body, poison to our body. We refrain from smoking, from drinking too much alcohol. If we sleep 7-8 hours a day, we maintain our fitness. Usually, this body will have a healthy and lengthy life. As in a nation, if we take care of the nation, we take care of their resources, we manage all the subsystems well, we have a healthy lifestyle, we don't destroy with malpractices, with unhealthy actions. Usually a country becomes healthy, wealthy, and long life. This is what I study from history. I study many civilizations that last hundreds of years. The Chinese civilization, more than 3,000 years. The Indian civilization, thousands of years. The Persian civilization, the Islamic civilization, Umayyad, Abbasid, Ottoman, Morocco, the kingdoms in Spain, the Iberian Peninsula, the Russian civilization, the Western Christian civilizations, the British Empire, the French Empire, Portuguese, Spanish, the Dutch Empire, and in the last century, the last 50, 60, 100 years, the American civilization, the American Empire. And I studied, there were certain common denominators. I read a study from Harvard University once, that what are these common denominators? What makes a successful civilization? Apparently, of course, the common denominator is a government that works for the benefit, for the common good. Brilliant or excellent bureaucracy, excellent military, excellent intelligence, excellent legal system, excellent police. These are the common denominators that enable a civilization to last hundreds and hundreds of years. On the other hand, there are failed states, very rich in resources. So, as in the health of a body, the health of an economic system or the health of a nation also. If the system has disturbances, there's a dysfunction in the system, the body needs intervention. We go to the medical experts, we have a medical checkup, we check our blood, what's wrong with our system. The modern medical technology is amazing. In the last 30, 40 years, amazing. We have micro technology, put a camera into our brain, knows exactly what's happening. Our blood tests will tell us what's wrong with us. Also, therefore, if you want to know the condition of our country, we must also check all the indicators. So my approach now is to look at our key indicators, our key performance indicators, and let us compare ourselves with our peers. We should not compare ourselves with Germany or United States, Canada. Let's compare with our neighbors. How are we doing compared to our peers? Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and Vietnam. And let us see the key indicators. And when we study all the indicators, it's like we check our blood in the laboratory. If we check our blood in the laboratory and the result come in, how can we be angry at the lab if our cholesterol level is 350? Or our uric acid, or our kidney is not functioning well? Do we go to the lab and be angry at it? And we order the lab to change the results? Maybe an Indonesian lab can be persuaded to change the results of the lab. I don't want to see my cholesterol level 300, put down to 200. Yes, sir, you're paying for it. So, when I talk about indicators, usually I am being vilified by the elite of Indonesia. But it's okay. I'm just trying to talk sense. Let us see internationally approved indicators. Human Development Index. We are ranking 113 from 188 countries. We lose out to Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand. 113. We're just above Vietnam, just above Philippines. What is the Human Development Index? It's a decent standard of living. It's GNI per capita, the GNI index. It's life expectancy. It's long and healthy life. It's knowledge. Education index. So, in this performance, I don't think, as the fourth largest country in the world, with so much resources, so high aspirations, 73 years of independence, I, as an Indonesian, am not proud of this performance. Let us see another key indicator. According to a PISA study, we are ranked 66 in mathematics. 65 in science. In reading, we are 67. From 66 from 73 countries. There is a big study. Only 6 countries below us. As an Indonesian, I'm sad at this performance. The World Bank has given their report card. And according to the World Bank, more than half, 55% of Indonesians are functionally illiterate. Indonesians can read but don't understand what they are reading about. This is the verdict of the World Bank. As an Indonesian, I'm also not very happy about this. I'm very sad. Years of life expectancy. We're number 168 from 245. Again, we are below Singapore, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia. Infant mortality. We are number 143 out of 239 countries. This time we are below the Philippines. And this is a very worrying development. According to the World Bank, UNICEF, WHO, Joint Child Malnutrition Estimate, Indonesian children experience stunting, 36.4%. Out of 3 children, 1 experience stunting. It means growth below normal. The development development of the brain cells are not normal. The development of the muscle cells are not normal. The development of the bone cells are not normal. Indonesian children, 1/3 are very short. That's why very difficult for us to win in soccer championships. There was a youth team, Indonesian youth team against Japanese youth team. The Asian youth, one of the nearest Asian youth championship. Our under 16 or under 18 against the Japanese under 18. And you can see our boys, the head of our boys are up to the shoulders of the Japanese. So I didn't stay to see the game. I went out very sad because I knew that we were going to lose. But the fact that our boys reached the finals shows the spirit and the effort of our boys. But in the end, you know, size matters. And this is an indicator that our people are malnourished. The mothers do not get enough protein. When they carry their babies 9 months in their body, they do not get enough protein. The child does not get enough protein. When the child is born, they do not have access to milk, etc., etc. Again, for me as an Indonesian, it's very sad. Stunted children struggle to keep up in school and to find good paying jobs. Another indicator, access to clean water. We are 123 out of 180 countries. The 4th largest country in the world, in a tropical zone, with a lot of rain. We are flooding. We don't have the ability or the will to manage water. Where I live, in Bogor, at one time we measured one night of rainfall was 200 milliliters of water, and that's the same as 1 year of rainfall in Western Australia. And yet, our people do not have access to clean water. I think this shows the ability of our elite to think about the good of the many, the good of the people. Another sad indicator, although maybe in a lighter atmosphere, and that is also in soccer, football, we are ranked 160, the 4th largest country in the world. We can't choose 12 good players to play at a good level internationally. Income, GNI to GDP ratio. Currently, before it was GNP, now the correct word is GNI, gross national income. Many Indonesian economists, economic managers always talk about GDP. They don't understand that GDP means production in Indonesia, not production by Indonesians, not production owned by Indonesians. Therefore, we are 169. We see a lot of factories, we see a lot of buildings, we see a lot of this and that. What does it add to our national wealth? Not not much. In fact, I keep saying to Indonesians that basically there's a net outflow of our national wealth. What our founding fathers fought for in our struggle for independence basically has not changed. In my opinion, the future of the young generation of Indonesia, if this continues, is very saddening. Another indicator that we are lacking, falling behind, is the tax ratio. Under the new order, under the Suharto regime, which was considered authoritarian, military regime, the tax ratio was above 14%. At one time it reached 16%. The tax ratio of other countries are higher than us. I think the tax ratio of Zambia is 18% now. So maybe we should go to Zambia and learn how they manage their government. Indonesians sometimes are very, especially the elite, are very, very complacent. We tend to look down on Africa and Africans. And yet, many of the countries are performing better than us. And I think this is a bit outdated, I'm sorry, my research team. I heard that Thailand now is already 18%. Please check with my staff. And I heard that Malaysia is already nearly 18%. What this means, if we can achieve the performance that was achieved under the new order, under the authoritarian Suharto regime, which reached 60%, that means 6% of our GDP, 6% of $1 trillion US, which is, I'm not so good at mathematics, so 6% is 60 billion US. We are losing 60 billion US because of economic mismanagement, because of inefficient bureaucracy, because of, in my opinion, lackadaisical attitude towards government. We are losing $60 billion. Can you imagine a government that can maintain a tax ratio that was achieved? And I have reports, my team has been talking to World Bank experts. They said, it's doable. We can do it. Indonesia can achieve 18-20%. This is the considered opinion of World Bank experts. They have studies. They are willing to give us loan, soft loan, to prepare all the research and all the preparatory work so that our bureaucracy can achieve a tax ratio of 18%. Can you imagine? Another indicator, reserves for October 2018, they're around 115. I heard from my friends in Central Bank, it's even more than that. Singapore, 1/50th of our economy. A nation of 5 billion people. They have reserves of 285 billion, which they announced. We don't know the number which they don't announce. Thailand, 1/3 of our size, but twice our net foreign reserves. Malaysia, near us, 1/5 of our size. This is mathematically worrying. Mathematically and by the law of physics is also worrying. Singapore, the size of less is smaller than one regency, one district. Bogor is bigger than all of Singapore. Our palm oil plantations are bigger than Singapore. I have the honor of managing a timber concession, which is 4 times the size of Singapore. It's not that I'm jealous of Singapore. No, I'm saying the Singapore government, the Singapore leaders have done a great job. Small size, great performance, with no resources. Indonesian leaders should look themselves in the mirror and see. Whenever I talk about this, I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying, hey, Indonesians, let's get our act together. Because there's a dynamic going on. There's a dynamic going on. We are having to address 5 million new mouths every year. There's a population explosion happening in Indonesia. 5 million. There's a new Singapore every year. I don't know why anybody wants to run for president of Indonesia. I'm beginning to have second thoughts. When I see, I met a retired Indonesian Lieutenant General, my junior. I met him on a plane. We were both going to Europe. And I said, hey, where are you going? I'm going to Munich. What are you doing in Munich? Oh, we have a club of motor cyclists, big bikers. So apparently there's a club of Indonesians who go from one country to another, and you will go on this nice long bicycle rides. Last week we were in this country, next week we were going on a trip from San Francisco to Chicago, which will take us 2 weeks. So I was like, hey man, that's a good life. He's enjoying this retirement. And of course I have to go around looking for each vote. Trade balance. We're number 22. Our foreign currency, which is an indicator of the strength of the economy, confidence of the business community in the health of the economy. In 4 years, our rupiah has depreciated. Ladies and gentlemen, the challenges that we have to overcome is very, very great. High cost of living, high unemployment, 95 million poor. That's the official poverty line. The World Bank considers maybe twice as high. Rising government debt, 1.5 trillion debt, rupiah, every day. We are living on borrowed money. The United States can have a great debt because the United States have a lot of productive, scientific, and technological production capacity. We don't. We're just selling raw material without any value added. So basically, Indonesia is a country that is dependent on debt. In fact, we are borrowing money to pay the salaries of our bureaucracy. Where in the commercial world, where in the business world will a lender lend money to pay for overhead? Again, this is going against the law of common sense, the law of common sense management. Struggling democracy. I think many people in the Indonesian elite do not understand or has not accepted the real philosophy of democracy. I think they consider elections as a technicality that can be rearranged according to the capacity of the power holders. Successful civilizations, of course, have their own distinct system of government that should be addressed to the local situation. But in my opinion, in a country as diverse as Indonesia, with very important fault lines, we are multi-racial, multi-ethnic, multi-cultural, hundreds of ethnic groups. The propensity, the danger of clashes between these fault lines, clashes between different cultures, ethnic groups, races, religion is very high. Therefore, history teaches us that actually democracy, a real democracy, is the best system to diffuse these types of propensity for violence. Therefore, it's very saddening that our development towards democracy is also experiencing a form of stunting. People who want to exercise their freedom of expression, sometimes in the social media, are being hounded, have been arrested. Indonesian citizens are being hounded from going to Indonesian cities to make speeches. We have the spectacles of Indonesian citizens not being allowed to get out of the airport. And everybody knows that government officials are involved. This is a blatant and sad violation of the most common right of a citizen. We have clerics who are not allowed to give their oration and being labeled as extremists. I have been labeled as practically a supporter of ISIS. fighting for a caliphate. These type of accusations, which are really going against the reality. I'm leading a party, multiracial party. Our party oath is to defend Pancasila, all races, all religions. I have a lot of support by Christians, by Buddhists, by Hindus. Therefore, gentlemen, I'm very concerned about the development. Now we have in the voter list of the coming election. Now there's a controversy in the election commission because there's about 30 million names that we are not allowed to check. 30 million names. Even 1 million names that is uncounted is a transgression, is an insult to real democracy. History teaches us that if we are not willing to respect the will of the people, many times in history, the people express their will in ways other than the ballot box. That's the teaching of history. And I, for one, do not want to see the development in Indonesia. I'm just reminding everybody, let us respect and play by the rules. I want to get a mandate for my people because I have a vision, I have a program, I have the real field experience of our programs. I'm convinced that we can turn around this country very fast, but we need clean and strong government. Strong in what sense? Strong in the sense, strong commitment to eradicate corruption, strong commitment to bring down poverty, strong commitment to narrow the disparity in income gap, strong commitment to provide basic services to our people, the greatest good to the greatest number of Indonesians, not the greatest wealth to a few Indonesians, which for me is a recipe for a breakdown in the body politic. In my opinion, I will coin or I will use amongst my team the strategy which I call the big push strategy. You have to emulate countries that have been successful, emulate successful stories. The United States in the late 1800s, early 1900s, China, Russia, India, pulling their people out of poverty. In 1978, 90% of Chinese people were below the poverty line. In 1978, 90% of the Chinese citizens of the People's Republic of China were under the poverty line. Today, it's 1%. The Chinese have achieved from 1978 to 2018, bringing 99% of their people above the poverty line. What is happening in China is an economic miracle. We should study from these successful stories. We need, in my opinion, for an independent nation, we need to be self-sufficient in energy, self-sufficient in food, self-sufficient in clean water. Our own government announced last week, BPPT announced last week that in 2020, 2027, we will import 100% of our energy needs. 100% of fuel. Today, we are importing 1.3 billion barrels per day. 1.3 billion barrels per day. We're sending about more than $100 million every day abroad for fuel consumption. This is untenable for the survival of the Indonesian nation. My strategy will be, we will use our competitive advantage. We are occupying 1/3 of the tropical zone of the world. We, Brazil, Congo, Indonesia, the tropical belt. What does this mean? This means that we can have 3 harvests a year. With technology, with good management, we can have 3 harvests a year. Our competitive advantage is in agriculture and agribusiness. Therefore, my strategy will be for self-sufficiency by bioenergy, biofuel. We have about 88 million hectares of destroyed forest already destroyed. We can rebuild this forest to be productive. That is my strategy. The strategy of the big push strategy of the Prabowo Subianto is to achieve self-sufficiency very fast. Our energy reserve is depleting. The BPT announced a few days ago, 15 December. Okay, let's go forward. Therefore, we are convinced that we can produce diverse bioenergy. We can produce bioethanol from sugar palm trees. We can produce biocoal. We can produce biochar. We can produce synthetic gas from gasified biocoal. Therefore, this will be the core of our big push strategy. We must achieve food self-sufficiency. We calculate that with about 8 million hectares producing energy and another 4 or 5 million hectares producing food, we will be completely self-sufficient in food and energy. We must look for new, innovative, revolutionary technology to manage our water. I talked to an expert, a water expert, a few weeks ago. He said the world will face a deficit in clean water by the year 2025. Not very far from now. We can see now the effects of the climate change. We see tremendous forest fires in California. Thousands of people missing. Many parts of the world are experiencing a great impact on the environment. Indonesia, in my opinion, not ready. The sea north of Jakarta is rising. The United Nations predicted that the water from Tanjung Priok, the shore, into 2025 will be in front of candidacy, in front of Grand Hyatt Hotel. The northern shore, the water of Tanjung Priok, will be in Bundaran HI, the roundabout in front of HI. The water is rising, I think it's 5 centimeters a year. I've been there. Thousands of people living in Tanjung Priok, they live on on water. Their living room is water. They walk on planks to go from the living room to the bedroom on planks because the seawater is already in their home. And this is 1 hour from where we are sitting. 1 hour from the palace of the President of the Republic of Indonesia. In fact, we had the image of the President of the Republic of Indonesia, the fourth largest country in the world, receiving a foreign head of state, and the palace garden was flooded. Our president had to walk ankle deep in water. As Indonesian has said. We have done research. There's a pilot project in East Kalimantan. My brother is running it. I'm very proud of him. He's a very brave man, going into new technology. And it's good money too. Sugar palm has an IRR of 30%, 31%. We can create one job every 2 hectares. We don't need pesticides. So we have our strategy. I think I just conclude now. How's my time? Final year? But I think I just summarize, not too much detail, but the facts are there, the statistics are there. So I try to back up all my figures with credible sources. Democracy index, we slid from 70 to 72.8. Freedom House report considers that Indonesia is not really free. We are partially free. There's extreme unequal distribution of wealth. The richest 1% control 45% of our wealth. The richest 10% control 74% of our wealth. Corporations control 82% of our land. Ladies and gentlemen, we must overcome 2 significant challenges: the mismanagement and unequal distribution of our economy, and the power of the oligarchy over our democratic system. Our wealth outflow is reaching about 66,000 trillion rupiah. Our economic outflow is not stopping. Corruption is running rampant. You can see in the media every week there's a new public official being arrested. We call it OTT. Yeah. Operasi tangkap tangan. They caught red-handed receiving bribes. So, langsung kita kesimpulan. Maybe I'd like to conclude by putting another dimension to the Indonesian situation. We are part of Southeast Asia, therefore the geopolitical situation in Southeast Asia will affect Indonesia. The geopolitical situation in Southeast Asia is influenced now by the rivalry between China and the United States. China has achieved an economic miracle, jumping to the forefront as a leading world power, leading economy in less than 50 years. If you see the rise of China versus the United States, the rivalry which there's a word for that, it's called the Thucydides trap. Thucydides, a Greek historian, coined an adagium, which is very, very important for any leader to understand. The strong will do what they can, and the weak will suffer what they must. And in the study of history, apparently, the rise of an emerging power will always result in conflict. In the last 500 years, according to a Harvard historian, there were 16 conflicts between a rising power and a power that is already dominant. Of the 16 instances, only four, did not result in open war. 12 resulted in war. Let us hope that the rivalry between US and China does not end up in physical war. But there is a rivalry. Let us see the key battlegrounds. The USA graduates in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, 300,000 graduates a year. China graduates 1.3 million graduates a year. 4 times the United States. Graduates in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Indonesia, I am a bit hesitant to give out figures yet, but I assure you, so it's a very sad figure. I once talked to an American Nobel laureate in physics. He visited Indonesia. I happened to host him, and he said he wanted to visit the University of Indonesia, considered one of the best institutions of higher learning in Indonesia. He wanted to visit the physics department. He visited the physics department. I met him in the evening, and he was very critical. You know how these scientists are. You know, they are not diplomats, they are not politicians, they will say what you think. And he said to me, Your Excellency, your country, the 4th largest population in the world, and your best university, you have only one professor in physics. One. I mentioned this when I gave a talk in the Faculty of Economics a few months ago. But Dillon was there. I mentioned this in the University of Indonesia. There was the deputy rector, and of course he protested. No, that's not true. It's not true that we only have one physics PhD. And so I said, oh yes, sir. Then can I ask how many you have? We'll check. So, can you imagine? The deputy rector does not know how many PhDs he has. It's very sad, maybe. By the last visit of the American Nobel laureate to the time I gave the speech, maybe there was an increase, maybe 100% increase from 1 to 2. Well, at least an increase. If one PhD in physics, sad. The 21st century is a century of science, of technology, engineering. How can we compete without science? Well, sad that we are 55% illiterate, functionally illiterate. climate technological production. China in 2014, 27%. Maybe today they are on par. Maybe they're taken over from the United States. Our R&D budget now is higher than USA. Supercomputer. Last year, China overtook the United States. China has 167 supercomputers. Last 2 years ago, now they reached 169 or 70. And I'm very sad because I remember in 1996, I think Indonesia had one supercomputer already. In 1996, Habibie was the one who got that supercomputer. And he was mocked. He would say, what do we need supercomputer for? In 1996, Benar Pak Ilana, sekitar 96 or 25. 96. We already had a supercomputer in 1996. Military, this is a RAND operation study. A RAND operation study, one of the most credible research think tank in military strategy, geopolitics in the United States. According to RAND operation, out of 9 military technological sectors, China is able to beat the Americans in 6. This is according to RAND operation. What is my point? My point is, here we are, fortified structure of the world, strategic seaways, China, United States. We want to be friends with both. We respect and we have to respect both powers. Our traditional foreign policy has always been to be friends with everybody. In the height of the Cold War, we chose to be non-aligned. And my philosophy is domestically and internationally, 1,000 friends too few. One enemy too many. I want to be friends with China. We must respect China as the rising world power. But we also respect the United States and the West. In my opinion, maybe this is not politically correct to say it, I think generally, the United States has been a benevolent world power. In my opinion, there are instances of grand mistakes. Every imperial power experiences what's called overextension. I think the United States is experiencing that now. But let us be very objective. If we are asked in our hearts, actually, we admire American way of life, right? To be very frank, most of us like where we're in. Most of us wear denim jeans. I wear denim jeans all the time. Very comfortable. Most of us watch Netflix, HBO, right? This is the soft power of the United States. We like rock and roll. Come on. Admit it, you guys like rock and roll also, right? Come on. Right? So, my point is, but the Chinese influence is very strong in this history. We also like Chinese food. You see Indonesian foods. I think half derived from Chinese food, half derived from Indian. We like curry. So this concludes my short talk. I hope I have not hurt anybody's feelings, but that's the nature of a political leader. Everything we say could be used against us. I would like to conclude with a sad but harsh reality. It's a man going around on the internet. The career path of a young Indonesian boy. The most on the right is the head of elementary school. After he graduates, he goes to junior high school. The head of the junior high school. After he graduates, he goes to high school. And after he graduates from high school, he becomes a project driver. Sad. But it's harsh reality. This is my passion. This is my inner drive. I do not feel happy at this career path. I want the young boys of Indonesia to be entrepreneurs, to be engineers, to be pilots, to own restaurants, and not to be waiters in the restaurant, to own cafes, to own companies, to own a farm, and not just be a coolie. That is what drives me. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much.